Hello, Elizabeth here, and today I'm going to show you 10 different ideas for themed Halloween party snacks. These are all delicious and pretty easy to make. I've served every one of these snacks to my friends, and all 10 have had great reviews. I'm going to walk you through each one step by step. Number 1 is these Jackolantern stuffed peppers, which was definitely the crowd favorite out of all the food in this video. The filling for the stuffed peppers is very customizable. You can do anything that's kind of like a chili. For my filling, first I browned a pound of ground beef and added some onions and garlic. I drained the fat and added a packet of taco seasoning and a packet of chili seasoning, a can of diced tomatoes, a can of black beans, and some cooked rice. I let that simmer for about 20 minutes and then added in a bunch of shredded marble cheese. You will need some orange bell peppers. I stuffed 5 peppers and still had plenty of this filling left over, which I used to make nachos the next day. I washed my peppers and cut off the tops and removed the insides of the peppers. Then I used a paring knife to carefully carve little jack-o'-lantern faces into the sides of each of the peppers. I filled each of the peppers to the top with the filling I made and added some more shredded cheese right on top. Then I baked the peppers and their tops at 350 for about 30 minutes until the peppers were fork tender and popped their tops back on before serving. Number 2 is these chocolate-covered Funfetti skull cakes. For these, you'll need a silicone skull-shaped cake pan, or you can do another shaped cake pan if you like. I mixed up a box of rainbow bit cake mix according to the instructions on the box. I sprayed my pan well with cooking spray and scooped the cake mix into the pan. I baked them until a toothpick stuck into them came out clean. I overfilled my cake pans a little bit, but once they were done, I carefully cut the excess cake off the tops of them, and I just turned that extra cake into cake pops, which you can do while the cake is still hot so that the steam will assist in creating the cake pop ball shapes. Then I removed the cakes from the pan and allowed them to cool completely. I washed and dried the cake pan. Then I melted these white chocolate candy melts and spooned them back into that same skull pan, which I did not spray with cooking spray this time. And I used the spoon and my fingers to spread out the chocolate and make sure everything was covered. Then I placed the cakes back into the pan, sinking them down into the chocolate so that the chocolate on the bottom would be displaced and creep up the sides to fully coat the cakes. I put them on a sturdy pan in the freezer for about an hour. This is key so that you don't break them when you take them out. I carefully removed the cakes from the pan, and the result was these, dare I say, flawless looking chocolate-covered cakes. These were a big hit. I want to try making these again and adding some sort of filling in the middle. Number 3 is this Scream-themed charcuterie board. I started with a wheel of brie cheese to make the ghost face character. I used the tip of a knife to kind of sketch out the outline of the head as well as the eyes and the mouth. My wheel of brie is quite large, so I decided to slice it in half, and obviously a comically large machete is the ideal choice for the job. Then I followed my sketch lines to carefully carve out the shape of the head, and for the eyes and the mouth, I just removed the top layer to make a little crater in the cheese. I placed 2 small blackberries and 1 large blackberry on the eyes and the mouth, and then transferred it to the middle of a wooden cutting board. Then I added more blackberries surrounding the brie to create the hood and the upper body all the way down to the bottom edge of the cutting board. Then I started folding slices of meat in half and then in half again, overlapping each other to look kind of pretty, and then I added them to the board surrounding Mr. Ghostface. And from here, I kept working my way out to the edges of the cutting board. I added a variety of different crackers, overlapping them and tucking them underneath the meat slices. I cut the remaining brie into little triangles and added those around the edges as well. I rolled up some rectangular meat slices starting at the corners and then filled in any remaining gaps with more crackers and slices of meat. Number 4 is these Oreo stuffed Pillsbury cookies. For this recipe, you'll need some Pillsbury sugar cookies and some Oreos. Open up your package of cookies. You'll need 2 sugar cookies and 1 Oreo for each stuffed cookie. Use your hands to warm up 2 slices of the dough and flatten them out. Then place the Oreo between the 2 pieces and use your fingers to pinch the edges of the sugar cookies together so that the Oreo is fully closed in. Repeat this until you run out of cookie dough. This will warp the designs of the sugar cookies and they won't really look like ghosts or pumpkins anymore, but it will make them look kinda tie-dyed in Halloween colors. Then you'll bake the cookies according to the package instructions. I did 14 minutes at 350. When they come out of the oven, you can transfer them to a cooling rack to cool completely. And the end result is these delicious stuffed sugar cookies with an Oreo center. Number 5 is this pumpkin-shaped sweet potato gnocchi in a garlic rosemary butter sauce. This one is a bit more time-consuming, but totally worth it. I started by making the pasta dough. I washed and dried a sweet potato, then pricked some holes in it with a fork to release steam and keep it from exploding in the microwave. I microwaved this large sweet potato for 7 minutes until it was tender, but the timing will depend on the size of your sweet potato and your microwave. Once it was tender, I scooped out the flesh and mashed it with a fork until it was smooth. I also had some leftover pumpkin puree, so I added that to my dough as well. You can use just pumpkin, just sweet potato, or a mixture of both. Next, I added some all-purpose flour to the bowl and mixed with a spatula. I do this entirely by feel, and it always comes out great. You don't want to add too much flour to totally dry it out, but you want to add enough flour that it's no longer super sticky like this and coming off on your hands. If you're a measurements kind of cook, I apologize, but it's really gonna depend on whether you're using just pumpkin or just sweet potato or both, the amounts of each, and the level of moisture that's happening. But you can just feel it out, I believe in you. I also added some salt and then just kneaded the dough with my hands until everything was well incorporated. Once it's feeling good, I portion out pieces of dough that will become the tiny little pumpkins. You can make these any size you like. I rolled each portion into a round ball. And then it was time for the fun part, which is making them look like little pumpkins. I find it easiest to use the dull side of the blade of a paring knife. I set each dough ball on the counter and rocked the edge of the knife across the diameter of the ball 4 times to create 8 equal sections. Make sure to go over any areas a second time if needed to get super defined lines. Next, I used a toothpick to poke a hole in the center of each pumpkin. Then I stuck a dried rosemary needle into each one to look like a stem. And then my cute little pumpkins were ready to be cooked. I filled a large frying pan with enough water to cover the pumpkins and added some salt. Once the water was boiling, I carefully placed my pumpkins into the water. They only need a few minutes to cook. Once they're floating around in the water, give it about another minute and then carefully remove them from the water. For some reason, the rosemary stems stay in place throughout this entire process. I don't understand how or why, but I appreciate it. You can eat this with whatever sauce you want. A pesto or a cream sauce would be great, but I like to make a simple and delicious butter sauce. I melted a good hunk of salted butter in a pan over medium-low heat. I added some dried rosemary and grated in a few cloves of garlic. Then I put my boiled pumpkins back in the pan to fry them up in this butter sauce and get them a bit golden and crispy. This will only take a couple minutes as well. And then the gnocchi is ready to serve. I spooned some sauce into a dish and placed my little pumpkins right on top. Apart from being adorable and beautiful to look at, this pasta is so comforting and satisfying to eat. Number 6 is this barfing pumpkin guacamole. This one is really simple. You can even use store-bought guacamole if you don't want to make your own. My go-to guacamole recipe includes avocados, baby tomatoes, hot banana peppers, green onion, lime juice, garlic, and salt. I drew a face on a small pumpkin to make it look like it was throwing up and then served the guac on a plate in front of the pumpkin. Kinda gross, but it's Halloween. Number 7 is these pumpkin-shaped pizza pockets. First, I made a simple filling with chopped up slices of pepperoni, grated cheese, and a few spoonfuls of tomato sauce. You can add in whatever you want. Then you'll need some pizza dough. I just use store-bought dough, but you can definitely make it homemade if you want to. Portion and stretch out small pieces of your dough, add in a spoonful of that filling, and then pinch it shut nice and tight. To give it the pumpkin shape, you'll need some baker's twine. I cut 6 long pieces and laid them out crisscrossed on a plate. Then I placed the pizza pocket in the middle where the strings cross, and I tied each of them tightly into knots in the middle and cut off the excess string. I brushed the tops with melted garlic herb butter and popped them in the oven at 425 for about 15 minutes. When they came out of the oven, I cut off and removed the baker's twine and then stuck a pretzel stick into the center of each one to act as a stem. These are mostly bread, so I served them with a bowl of marinara on the side for dipping. Number 8 is these Frankenstein-inspired Rice Krispie squares. I made 2 separate batches of the cereal and marshmallow mixture, and for mine I used 25 marshmallows with 3 cups of Rice Krispies and added in food coloring to make one batch purple and the other batch green. Then I plopped them into a baking dish in random blobs and pressed them together. I let them cool, removed them from the dish, and put them on a cutting board. Finally, I used marshmallow fluff to add random lines all over them. This was meant to represent the signature white stripe in the Bride of Frankenstein's hair. Do you kind of see what I was going for here? They just taste like normal Rice Krispie squares with the extra sweetness on top from that marshmallow fluff. Number 9 is these creepy charcuterie skulls. Honestly, these have gotten very mixed reviews on my channel, so I'll let you decide if your guests are the kind of people who would be into this. But they are very tasty and very on brand for a Halloween party. You'll need some sort of skull-shaped pan or mold for this one as well. First, spray your pan with some cooking spray, and don't skip this step. It will make it way easier for you to demold later. Next, take a few strips of prosciutto and lay them overlapping inside the mold so that the skull shape is completely covered with no visible gaps. I haven't tried this with any other meat, but I don't think you'd get great results. Prosciutto is cut extremely thin, which allows it to really take the shape of all the details in the skull mold. And I think other types of meat wouldn't be quite flexible enough, so I would just add in some other meats somewhere else on the cheese board and stick to prosciutto for this part. Next, you'll need some sort of soft spreadable cheese. I'm using Boursin, but use whatever you like. And then you really want to press your cheese down firmly into the mold. This will make sure you get into all the nooks and crannies of the skull, and all of those details will be visible when you're done. Then you want to fold over the edges of the prosciutto and smooth them out as best you can. Finally, you can cover them with some plastic wrap and stick them in the fridge to set. I only had mine in for about 30 minutes, so it doesn't need a super long time, but this will help to really set in those details of the skull shape. Once they're set, you can pull them out of the fridge and flip your pan over onto a cutting board to very carefully demold the skulls. If you're using silicone, just be careful not to shove a finger too hard into it and ruin the skull shape. This is where the cooking spray will really help you out. If you used a sturdier pan, you can give it a careful whack on the counter to help release the skulls. And that's it! Then you can set them out on your party platter with some crackers, other meats and cheese, pickles and olives, whatever you like. And finally, number 10 is this pumpkin-shaped puff pastry baked brie. Baked brie is always a hit at any party, you really can't go wrong. This one is really easy to make. You can just get some frozen puff pastry from the grocery store and let it thaw according to the package instructions. Then lay it out flat on a cutting board. I chose to spread some red pepper jelly inside, but you could use apple butter, hot honey, something else, or nothing at all. Then I placed a large wheel of brie on top of that red pepper jelly, folded in the sides of the puff pastry, and pinched it closed. To create the pumpkin shape, again I used baker's twine. I cut 4 long strips and laid them out crisscrossed. I placed the brie with the smooth side down in the middle, tied all the strings together, and cut off the excess. I flipped it over to bake with the knot side facing down. I brushed it with egg wash and then popped it in the oven at 400 degrees for about 30 minutes. When I took it out of the oven, I cut off and removed the baker's twine and then popped a few pretzel sticks into the middle to act as a stem. I served it with crackers, but a crusty bread situation would also be delicious. And there you have it, 10 snack ideas for your next Halloween party. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you enjoyed my content, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel and leave a comment letting me know what sort of videos you'd like to see in the future. See you later!